In Los Angeles and across America, people of color are suffering and dying from disproportionate health impacts on a planet that has less than 10 years to prevent irreversible damage. Heat illnesses, respiratory illnesses, water-related illnesses, food system impacts, insect-related diseases, Black maternal health, and mental health effects. As the impacts of climate change mount, millions of vulnerable people, our people, are going to bear the brunt of these extreme environmental events, which will likely lead to forced displacement, loss of cultural identity, and other related risks. These realities are as real as rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any Black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
First things first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil. For real, you the only father that I ever knew. I get my pregnant, I'ma be a better you. Prophecies that I made way back in the veil. Fulfilled. Listen, even back when we was broke, my team ill. Martin Luther King would've been on Dreamville. Talk to him. One time for my LA sisters. One time for my LA. Lame chicken can't tell the difference. One time for a who knows. Don't save her, she don't wanna be saved. 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 No role models and I'm here right now.
Welcome back into hour 2 of RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. That's one of my favorite J. Cole songs, honestly. So deep. You know, I appreciated it because I told you I felt like early J. Cole was a little too college heavy for me to truly embrace and appreciate it. But, yeah, can spit. You know, it's interesting what I've been thinking about, like, you know, it's an unpopular opinion to say you want a Will and Jada love, right? But one thing I feel like people forget in relationships is that it's going to be work. There are going to be moments where you may not feel your partner, where you're going through some, things. And I think people think that it's always going to be sunshine, roses, and cake, and it's not.
Baby, once that honeymoon phase is over, that's when it starts getting real. Oh, man.
And that doesn't mean accepting bad treatment or,
Right.
staying in something that you're totally unhappy with. But that means that it's always going to be work and, moments where you have to come together more and it might be a little tougher road. And I think that that is one of the things, though messy, though complicated, though entangled, you can take away from Will and Jada is that it's not perfect. But people still persevere through that. And it's like people don't want to hear that. They automatically think it's sullied or soiled. It may not be for you, but again, those vows do say for better and for worse.
I made the reference and the joke last time, be mad at your grandparents, when talking about Will and Jada. And I meant it in a good way and I meant it in a bad way because you have to understand that those relationships that our grandparents had, just considering the time period that they were in, they endured so much longer and so much more than we probably ever will in the relationships that we have in our lifetime.
I mean, and then too, I think the idea that people forget, like the back and forth, men are upset because they're only viewed as protection and providers. Some. I'm always saying some. No need to, not that any of you would, but clarify. But that is the role that they set up, right? So when they are looked at for those things strictly, it's offensive because society has made it harder for them to step into those roles in the same way maybe that they could in the past, right? In the meantime, women have taken more control and agency over themselves to not be in the position where if a man decides to leave or even passes away or gets sick, they don't have the same resources or ways to take care of their family. So they started, stepping things up on their side out of necessity. So I just think that some of the reasons why we got to where we are, people don't really look into it when they comment on this stuff, and they just break it down to sex and finance. But there's a reason why those two things are the focus.
Because those are the two things that break up relationships mostly.
Andy?
I also want to blame Disney too.
Why? You think the princess concept has messed people up?
100%.
Really?
The whole happily ever after, thinking things Cinderella, thinking that everything is just all smooth and perfect. No, like you said, relationships are work, and a lot of people aren't willing to put in the work. The one sign of any type of discrepancy, they're running out the door.
Someday my prince will come.
And piggybacking on that, the reason why people run out their people are not good friends. If they were good friends, then they would not keep up half the stuff they do in relationships.
And I think too, though, there's also an overcorrection of a lot of things. Do you know what I'm saying? I think that especially Generation X, as that is the generation that as children they saw more women divorcing, more homes separating, right? They also saw the other side of that, what staying in a unfulfilling or toxic relationship looks like, the frustrations that can come, whether, okay, it's not justified, but he's frustrated at work, so he comes home and is abusing his family. It's not an excuse, it's just the reason, right? So a woman's like, I'm never going to put up with that. I'm never going to do, and whatever thing may be going along with that. So she carries that blueprint. And if I see any signs of that, I'm out the door because I know what that life is like. I think, too, it's because mental health and the awareness of that has become obviously bigger. There's a downside to that because sometimes people self-diagnose, but they're aware of what bad treatment looks like. And for some, they overreach, perhaps. And there's misunderstandings, I don't know. It's a delicate balance.
It is.
So listen, when we come forward, we are going to get into J. Cole's actual comments. We're also going to talk a little bit about Nia Long and Jeezy. I want to get Trent's perspective on a couple of topics that came up in their chat from yesterday that has set the internet aflame. And more trending topics and headlines. You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
RSVP with Jill Munroe is your go-to show for staying in the know. More engaging conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This open enrollment season, LA Care Covered is offering health plans starting at $0 a month. Each plan provides benefits including $0 preventive services, 24/7 telehealth services, around-the-clock nurse advice lines, walk-in minute clinics, and more. Shop and compare premium silver plans with $0 deductibles to help meet your health goals. Ready to shop? Visit us online at lacarecovered.org for a commitment-free instant quote or speak with us directly at 855-222-4239. LA Care Covered, your affordable path to wellness.
Hey, son. How are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it. Navigating without a compass, eyes waiting, started to wonder. Metamorphosis, the loss of who you thought you was.
When your kid can't find the language, help them find the lyrics. Listen to the Sound It Out album and get tips and tools to start a conversation at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right. Y'all gotta try that Febreze car. Just right, just right, just right. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency, all over Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah, breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Keeping you informed, entertained, and always ahead of the curve. This is RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
You were locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. So we're going to get more into J. Cole, but before we do, young Jeezy, oh, he's just Jeezy now. My bad, Jeezy. Jay. He dropped a special podcast episode with he and Nia Long, having a conversation about mental health and relationships and, young trauma and things of that nature. And of course, some of the clips from it are making their rounds. So I told you one of them is that he said a real N-word doesn't cheat on his significant other because he knows his word is everything. And he's, he doesn't want to do that to that person. So he's not going to step out and make that mistake. That's one. And why did you look over there? Somebody over there?
No, I was just...
okay, I'm joking. You
know what?
And then he also, they also had a conversation about their youth, right? Talking about childhood trauma. And so Jeezy mentioned that when he was a kid, that a woman that was, I guess, babysitting him or unnamed, she was touching and doing things to him that, quote, don't normally happen to kids. So Long asked to explain more about the situation and if he had been molested. And he responded by saying, right, basically, because it was an older woman, I guess, taking advantage of him, right? He said, I was introduced to sex at a very young age. And I think that, it's something we've talked about before, and in part that most people don't. I remember Chris Brown saying he had sex at a very, very young age from a younger woman. I think Lil Wayne made the same assumption. And a lot of times people don't consider that as abuse or molestation because they're boys and, that's an ideal, but they're still, underage. So, one, why do you think it is that we don't talk about young men being taken advantage of older women? We've certainly seen it in these school situations with these teachers. It's not something that doesn't happen. So why do you think it's a conversation that kind of gets moved around so often?
Because I think some people consider it a rite of passage, in a sense. And as long as there's not another man doing it or, something like that, then it's swept under the rug because it's going to happen anyway. So, you might as well just, it's a guy and a girl. What's the big issue?
And it is considered a rite of passage. It, we've seen it in movies and things like that. It's often was the subject of like teen comedies in the 80s and so forth. Shout out to Brother Alfonso in the chat. But do you think people always say, like, because Nia also talked about how growing up in South Central LA, she used to mess with a lot of drug dealers and older men or whatever. And a lot of people have said that she has been brainwashed because when she was like a senior in high school, her boyfriend was like late 20s maybe or something like that, almost 30, right? And these are facts. And they were like, oh, he was a pedophile. We're going to put that part of the conversation aside, but she doesn't know she was groomed and she didn't know what she was doing. I don't necessarily feel that way about it, but, spoiler alert, given I was friends with one of her good friends around the same time. I know some of the things, like when she talked about lots of young girls, growing up in LA in that time frame, being involved with dope dealers. Jeezy was shocked by that. He was like, oh, you don't say. Like when she talked about the reasons why men were cheating, he was like, fascinating. He was putting his bid in,
It's an LA thing of the times.
But people really feel as though she doesn't recognize that she was groomed and she wasn't in her right mind.
But was she?
I don't believe that she was. I don't believe that she believes that she was.
Because listen,
but people automatically say that. And again, I know people think that it's a catch-all to say it was a different time, but it was, because a different time shapes context, it shapes conversations, it shapes what you believe is right and wrong. Even if it wasn't, if it was socially acceptable, it allows you to move in a different way.
I'm just thinking of when I was in high school as a senior. The summer of 99, okay? Fast. Definitely not dating anybody in high school and actively sought people outside of high school.
Right.
To interact with and be around, because that's what it was. And it wasn't because I was groomed. No, it was like, where are the 21-year-olds at? Where are the 25-year-olds? Where's
people
the
at
party?
With his own car and apartment.
Yes.
But here's the thing, again, there's different conversations that are happening now. There are different things that are allowed. And I applaud that, an agency. But I also think that, we're going to talk about Whoopi Goldberg's comments later. I think Generation X is an interesting cross-section of the development cycle because, and I know you're a millennial, but you're on the tail end.
I was about to say that was what I was, and then there's me.
You're the late millennial.
Early. Quote unquote, because I'm at that cutoff. Like, people consider 81, 82 millennial, but I don't identify with really anything about a millennial because there's this cutoff in my mind. To me, your generation, what is it?
X.
So I feel like the cutoff for Generation X it should have been like 1983.
I've heard a lot of people
because
say
after 83 is when, or I'll even push as far as to say mid 80s, because those kids still got a lot of the analog stuff in society and still have the values that we have, that I identify with from your generation, that the people just 5 years older than me didn't get. And it's like, you're way different.
5 years younger? Or 5 years?
I'm sorry, 5 years younger than me. Yeah, because like they were born with devices in their hands at that point.
Precisely.
I was not.
That's
which is why I identify, because I wasn't a digital or digitized kid.
I think that in that time period, there was a lot of, people say, oh, millennials and Gen Z, they've gone through so much. So did Gen X, or the things. There was the Iran hostage crisis. There was the threat of nuclear war. There were the changes to the social structure and, what type of benefits were being allowed and what happened to our streets and our neighborhoods. And I think within that, this particular group, which is smaller in number, you look at some of the movies, the teen movies from that time period, Red Dawn and things of that nature, where we were learning survival tactics, right? MacGyver. I feel like it really was, and you've seen the TikToks and videos about this, but it's true. We had to learn to survive in the changing generation as the things were changing from analog to digital, with our parents divorcing, separating, the climbing things that were happening as far as money, the epidemic of crack, and all of these different things. AIDS. And Generation X learned to skate, right? It's not that we didn't put in work or we don't believe in, we were considered the slackers. So it's funny when you think about, I do believe that millennials and Gen Z have learned and perfected working smarter, but I don't believe that it started with them. I don't think that they understand why Gen X was called the slacker generation. We perfected getting by within the system and figuring out the little tweaks on how to get our stuff and go. And that's what, millennials, younger ones, don't get about us, I think, and that's where the conflict starts. Brother Alfonso in the chat said something really, really great and powerful. I think that I didn't even consider. He said, I think some of these guys who say they were molested by a female are sometimes not being truthful, and it may have been a guy or both sexes in these situations. I didn't even consider that, but that is a profound thought.
He hit a spot, and I wanted to keep it, on track, because I don't want to be the guy that's always taking it left into the alternative conversation. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't, but because I tend to date guys who are bisexual, you hear about the sexual trauma that they endured sometimes, and it kind of makes sense. And it then becomes a question, are you reenacting your sexual trauma, or are you really trying to heal from it? So there's a lot of layers to that I think as Black people we don't really talk about.
That is something that's a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't, consider that in the thought process. I think, just based on the Black community in general, it's obviously hard when you're dealing with children and being taken advantage of, but then you add the layer in of the weight that comes with the homosexuality conversation amongst the Black community, and these other things. There's so many parts of it that people don't want to hear or take accountability for, or even just listen.
And even with when he said or a guy or both sexes, what that also we have to also in that comment is that it could have very well been a woman, but it could have very well been a man too, because guess what? If somebody was there at the time, oftentimes victimizers work in tandem. There's more than one abuser.
Urban Spinster brought up the Atlanta child murders. That is something that Gen X very much, listen, that was scary, right? Yeah. Very, and you think about too, at that time period, we have the internet, so we can do deep dives. You can sometimes just misinform.
There was an HBO documentary on it.
It was recently, right? Yeah. But the thing about it is, at that time, with some things, you were left to whispers. You were left to only as much airtime as one of the big three networks gave it. It was hard to get, deeper into the facts or things like that with many stories and many things. So I think that there's also more of a boogeyman factor that existed about certain things outside the lifestyle, because there weren't as many ways to really tap in with real people involved in the situations.
I'm just thinking back when I was growing up, and just my mother and her level of concern / paranoia about the things. That was something that she was like, well, you can get kidnapped, and that was something that we lived with.
Serial killer vans, like those kidnap cans. Listen, as a kid, you saw a van on the street, you don't still, Andy says still to this day, you don't walk on the same side of the sidewalk if a van is parked on the street because they could pop out of that van and snatch you up. Yeah. Who's Hakeem?
From Empire. Remember he was jogging through the park and you didn't watch Empire.
I did watch Empire. I just don't remember that.
So I remember that he was jogging through the park and they had ran through the park and snatched him up and threw him in the van.
Oh my God.
You don't remember the episode?
Oh my God.
I hollered. I was like, why did they catch this man like this? Not jogging through the park? That's crazy.
Urban Spinster in the chat says, I lived in ATL at that time. It was very scary. There were announcements at certain times of the night saying things like, it's 8 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Ooh. And I remember they used to have those commercials that ran on TV too, that would say, you know, basically that. And that type of stuff freaked me out. Like, there's this movie, they just celebrated the 25th anniversary of it.
It just dawned on me why our parents are so... Could you imagine just your mom at home, sitting up at home with a Virginia Slim at 8 o'clock getting ready for Dynasty, and she ain't talked to you in about an hour because she been on the phone with Pam, and that commercial come on and she hop up and scream and holler and you only in the backyard?
Dramatic scene.
Oh.
I mean, but realistically, you think about this. You were so able to be connected with everybody. You would leave the house and be gone, and your parents wouldn't talk to you all day until the evening, and really wouldn't have too many questions about where you were.
Because they knew that you were outside, or in
and
my
that you
instance,
were going to follow the rule. You knew not to embarrass them. You knew a neighbor could step in and pop you, potentially, you know, if you had that type of thing.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm shout out to all of my neighborhood friends' parents. There was Shalika, there was Mary Stewart. Shout out to both of them. Who else did I hang? I was always at Mary Stewart's house. She was probably so tired of me. And Jeanette, listen, will call Linda up in a heartbeat. He over here acting crazy, girl.
Right. And I think we don't have that type of community anymore as well, where we feel responsible for each other in that type of way. Not in a, you know, overly demand, but just in a, we want to make sure you make it home safely. We want to make sure that you are good. You don't have to worry about your child when he's over here with us.
Yeah.
You know? Urban Spinster, oh no, we read that comment. Listen, there's this movie that came out in the late 70s called When a Stranger Calls. And this man was calling the babysitter up and was like, have you checked on the children? Have you checked on the children? And so the whole thing went through, and spoiler alert, I'm going to spoil the movie. If you haven't seen it, I just said it's 40 years old, and there was a remake. Spoiler alert, he was calling from inside the house, and the police called and was like, the call's coming from inside the house. Are you crazy? That movie scared the heck out of me as a kid. These are the type of things that were set up. So we were taught to have our head on a swivel, taught to always be on defense.
Yes.
You know, and I think that extends to women and little girls being caught fast. I think the flip side of that is that was women trying to be protected. Like, sometimes it was evil and they were projecting, but also wanting to protect little girls because they knew the men would not care. And it's like, you have your guards up. Don't be out there. And it's going to go to a conversation we're going to have later, because they want you to kind of stay low so that you don't catch those men's attention.
We had to be ready for so many things back in the day. And, you know, we're still waiting on the rapture. We've been getting ready for that since we were 5.
Sugar Free told me, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. And I live by that little tidbit. Listen. When we come forward, more trending topics and headlines. You were locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Said, nah, I was the same without it. But then I thought back to a better me. Before I was a B-list celebrity, before I started calling lifted so heavily. Back when you could get a platinum plat without no melody, you wasn't sweating me. One time for my LA sisters, one time for my LA lanes who can't tell the difference. One time for a who knows. Don't save her, she don't wanna be saved. 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 I want a real love, dark skin and Aunt Viv love. That Jada in that weird love, that leave a toothbrush at your crib, love. And you ain't
Trending topics and the hottest happenings. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. The district is officially welcoming its top cop. Pamela Smith has been confirmed as D.C.'s chief of police. The vote came nearly 4 months after she was nominated and will go down in history. Smith is the first black woman to ever lead the agency. Council members praised her neighborhood walks and said her leadership style gives the community hope. The 55-year-old takes over as violent crime soars 40% and the city deals with 800 plus carjackings. Democrats won in Virginia and protected reproductive freedom. That's what Black Vice President Kamala Harris posted last night on X. The election results put an end to a possible 15-week abortion ban in the state. Governor Glenn Youngkin had called his plan a reasonable solution for those who disagreed with the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade last year. Democrats want to keep the current restrictions in place, which allow abortions through the second trimester. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Black Friday is Dell's biggest sale of the year. Get limited time deals, free shipping, and huge savings on laptops like the XPS 13. Engineered to do it all on the Intel Evo platform. Shop now at Dell.com/deals.
Environmental justice, pollution, and climate. In Los Angeles and across America, people of color are suffering and dying from disproportionate health impacts on a planet that has less than 10 years to prevent irreversible damage. Heat illnesses, respiratory illnesses, water-related illnesses, food system impacts, insect-related diseases, black maternal health, and mental health effects. As the impacts of climate change mount, millions of vulnerable people, our people, are going to bear the brunt of these extreme environmental events, which will likely lead to forced displacement, loss of cultural identity, and other related risks. These realities are as real as rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
Thinking about hosting a podcast and don't know where to start? Morris Media Studios has you covered. We're a professional podcast and voiceover studio located in Leimert Park. We specialize in recording and live streaming audio and video podcasts. Let us help you set up, record, and distribute your podcast. Hosting a podcast is a great way to bring awareness to your business, product, or good cause. For more info, visit morrismediastudios.com or give us a call at 323-815-4204.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Discover, this is Danny.
Hi, it's Jen Coolidge. I just want to thank you for making me feel so special. I earned cash back on debit for my dinner party groceries.
That's great. But with Discover Cashback Debit, we give everyone cash back on everyday purchases. Anything else I can help you with?
Are you hungry? 'Cause everyone left after the asparagus sorbet.
Introducing Discover Cashback Debit, a checking account with cash back. It pays to Discover. Eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashbackdebit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Curating the most compelling stories and delivering them straight to your ears. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
Right? And it is a philosophy that I do apply to life, right?
It's
Because
real if you think about it.
when preparation meets opportunity, that's what people call luck.
Is that what people call luck?
That's what luck is to me.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Yeah.
You're prepared for the opportunity that presented to you.
See, I don't think that's luck.
What do you think luck is?
Not that. I think luck is just something that you're not prepared for at all. Just kind of happens, and
Yeah, it happens, stands around. I
and
guess
it
that's
makes
my
you
point.
get ready.
But I guess that's
'Cause you're
my
not
point.
ready.
See, I think of it completely the opposite,
But
right?
see, I'm always ready though, or at least I try to be.
Here's the thing. I think of it the opposite. Here we go. The Wiz effect. It was always within you, baby.
Yes.
You just needed the opportunity or the experience to bring it out. That's why I say that it's, sometimes you are more prepared. Sometimes you are prepared in a more formal capacity.
Yeah.
But, that's a long-winded way to say I don't really believe in luck. I do, but I think that, there's a bigger portion of it. All right, let's get to what J. Cole had to say.
What did he say
about Jada and Will?
There's a clip of you recently performing, and you skip over a certain line.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this, bro. But that's from 2 years ago. You talking about the Will?
Oh, really?
That wasn't this year. That was 2 years ago.
Man, that's
and
crazy.
this goes to show you the internet narratives that we was talking
That's
about.
crazy.
Bro. Because at that time, entanglement was the word, and people were sending me screenshots of like, oh, I bet J. Cole don't want that Will and Jada love now. Like they were sending me these things, right? And it was around that time. So if you look at my face, at least what I thought I was projecting, that's me being like, I want a real love, dark skin that real love. That Jada and that's me saying like, yeah, I still want that. Amongst all of this that's going on in the media and that's going on with them personally, I still admire them. Like I still with their relationship.
So one that is on Yachty's podcast, Little Boat, where he said those statements. I think one thing is important. You see how quickly something spreads. The performance was actually from a few years ago and related to the entanglement thing that was making its rounds. But, I guess it's kind of hard sometimes to fact check, perhaps with video, maybe.
Ain't nobody fact checking these days. They're just seeing it, they posting it, they running.
And do people really care? The truth seems to be subjective. People don't mind if
Some
something's
people
a
do.
lie. I do.
And they get real mad when it's something, when they've been hoaxed and bamboozled, baby.
I think sometimes people will know something is a lie and will continue because it fits
Back
their narrative.
to our point
more.
earlier, the people that are like 37 and up, those are the people that get mad when they get hoaxed and bamboozled by some internet stuff that's not on the truth. These younger kids, they don't care. They're just going for the viral. Oh, did you to spread the information? They're not critical thinkers.
I don't know about that, but we'll consider it.
Yeah.
But, for him, he doesn't say why, but he says, he still admires their relationship. And I think, back to the point that we were making earlier, people forget that relationships are work. And that's why I think that, too, once again, social media, it's not the cause of all of our problems, but I think that it has done a number on, image and self-concept and self-worth for a lot of people. Because here's my thing. I can admire your relationship. I can think you guys look good together aesthetically. I can admire the cute moments that you have, right? And for me, if I say that's couple goals, I don't say that thinking that you are perfect or that there's no strife or that you always get along or that you're not going to go through things. It just simply means I'm enjoying the moment that you are giving us. But I think the idea everyone is trying to buy into perfection is crazy to me now, because it's unrealistic, and you have to look no further than your own life to know that that's not rational. That's not real. Andy?
Can I be honest?
Of course.
I know we give a lot of reverence to our elders, our grandparents' generation, our great grandparents' generation for, how strong of a family unit they were at that time. But, a lot of the times, our grandfathers, they had other families too.
Correct.
You know what I mean? But they don't really highlight that a lot of the times. You know what I'm saying? They want to diss, the current generation, but even though the family was tight, they were grimy too.
There's a lot of, family secrets is real, and I think the thing is this, once again, once divorce became something that was more accessible for the regular people, they could get themselves out of these situations and not be hampered by the public scrutiny or all of those things. But, I don't know. I think that it is okay to acknowledge that in liking someone or making someone couples goals does not mean you are overlooking, excusing, bypassing, or pretending as if problems and situations don't exist. It's just, acknowledging, hey, I like them, or I like the way they look, or that vacation looked cute, whatever. I think people take it really too seriously.
With that being said,
okay.
I think it's dope that Will and Jada still rock with each other.
Yep.
Jada had a book release or something like that, and Will still showed up. I think that's commendable, considering the fact that, they've been through some drama, and you know what? Their relationship ain't perfect, but they're still rocking with each other. They're still talking things out. They might not be in the best place, but they're in the place as a union, still trying to at least iron those wrinkles. So salute to them.
And it's not for everybody, but I think the reality that people go through things is real life, and you're going to have to figure it out. And it may not be for, Sheila and whomever, but it's going to happen at some point, Trent? You don't have nothing to add?
I don't want to repeat anything. It's all true.
So, I don't know. Do you think that, because I think that we're headed towards people being a little more private, more reserved as far as their lifestyle or relationships?
We're already there. Social media has ruined it. These apps have ruined it because people just have the idea you can swipe left and swipe right and you're going to get somebody brand new and the grass is greener on the other side. You're going to be chasing your tail like a dog in a circle, singing shoulda, woulda, coulda because you messed up the best thing that you had.
And
now you got to jump over gates and bam on doors at 9 o'clock in the morning drunk professing your love because you're a screw up.
That sounds oddly specific and personal.
And specific because that's what happens.
So listen.
I'm so tired of people. It's like, just do right the first time and you won't have to act crazy. And people are so busy emulating these relationships, not realizing there's hard work that you got to put in.
Here's the question, though.
Sorry, this is your show.
Yeah, do right the first time. People don't make mistakes. Players don't mess up. Like, do we expect too much perfection?
No, I don't.
In the early stages,
no.
And are unforgiving when, human nature says there's going to be some bumps sometimes.
I let a lot of stuff ride, and I've let a lot of things like, okay, let's not do this because X. I've had a lot of conversations, but if you keep repeating the same behavior, this is who you are. You don't want to change because clearly you're past the first 5, so it's going to be difficult for you to change. And I don't have to deal with this. So you need some time out and figure out if this is going to work in a mutually compatible way. And if not, then I got other stuff to do. It's not going to be this. I got other stuff to do. And when you figure it out and you're ready, if that ever happens, if I'm available, we can talk about it. But if not, I have other stuff to do, like show up on Wednesday nights.
Amen. Well, when we come forward, we're going to get into more trending topics and headlines. We are definitely going to talk about the former NFL player that got scammed out of $1.6 million. We're going to get into that because that story is interesting. It's juicy.
It sounds interesting.
All of that and more. You're locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Infusing a sense of fun and entertainment in every episode. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
More when we come forward.
Happy holidays, foodies. Les Affairs is your local Black-owned event planning and catering service you can trust to provide a Thanksgiving free of the holiday scaries. Find us at lesaffairsevents.com. No grocery shopping in this haunting economy, laboring over a burning stove or battling the boogeyman, the dishes. Spooky season's over. Let Les Affairs cater your feast. Order from our selection of meats and sides delivered Thanksgiving Eve. Next day, heat, eat, and enjoy. Learn more at lesaffairsevents.com or Instagram at lesaffairsevents, LESAFFAIRESEVENTS. Bon appetit!
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I was able to speak with Kate Luzio, former banking executive and now owner of Luminary, who partnered with Chase for this tour. She makes it her business to build community for business owners.
Yes, so I was a banker for 20 years before I decided to become an entrepreneur. 7 of those years were actually at JP Morgan Chase. One of the biggest things that I had going into my entrepreneurial journey was a big background in banking.
So what advice are you giving business owners looking for financial backing today?
So Chase brings in so much knowledge and the opportunity to understand what financial tools are out there for business owners to build, grow, and scale their business. A lot of business owners will say, well, I need to get a loan immediately. Well, you wouldn't just lend money to your friend if you didn't know why they needed it. I tell every business owner, you need a business plan, you need financial projections, you need a banker. Because you have to start building a relationship with a banker so that they get comfortable with how you're going to build that business and so that they can eventually support you in different ways.
Makes sense. So visit the Chase Community Center on Crenshaw and Vernon. Meet a banker today. Tell them about your business. I'm Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Now back to more captivating conversation on RSVP with Jill Munroe.
You were locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. So, listen. There is a former NFL player, right? And his career, towards the end of the career, he played for a period of time in Seattle with the Legion. He was part of the Legion of Boom. And he has recently discovered that a New Orleans man posed as him in an identity theft scheme for $1.9 million. Excuse me, I thought it was $1.9 million. So it's former All-Pro safety. Maybe he's not a safety. I don't know why I said that. But Earl Thomas, right? This gentleman pretended to be him and stole money from his bank accounts, cash, NFL checks, and more, right? So, if you aren't familiar with Earl Thomas, he was in the headlines, he and his wife Nina, right? Because they had a pretty volatile relationship. And Nina was arrested because she was accused of breaking into an Airbnb that he and his brother rented and interrupting them having a foursome with some young ladies. And she allegedly held a gun and busted up the place like Diamond and Players Club, right? So it was liquid. Sorry, something weird just happened. So Nina ended up being acquitted, but this happened. It was documented. I think that this was like in 2020. And, you know, that's a little salacious, right? So basically, Nina and Earl have separated. Contentious, much like their relationship.
They'll be back together.
However, the man, Kevin J. Thompson, who randomly had access to Earl's driver's license, bank accounts, titles to his cars that he transferred to his own account. Guess who his girlfriend is?
Niner.
Nina Thomas.
Niner.
9mm. That's his girlfriend. Now.
Oh, okay. Now it makes sense.
Perhaps.
She strikes again.
Perhaps he is just taking advantage of a woman that is divorced. Perhaps he targeted her. And, you know, that's how this coincidentally happened. However.
Come on.
Again, they had a pretty contentious divorce, right? And lots of accusations back and forth. Money. You know, it always comes down to money, right? And so he is facing identity theft, forgery, money laundering, credit card fraud, computer fraud, as well as bank fraud charges. Okay?
Yeah, so he was doing Niner's dirty work.
I mean, how do you think he got access, right?
Because how else would he get access? Because you have to have somebody who knows all the information, and your wife is that person. And considering that you blazing in guns like you were in a Tubi movie in Detroit with guns and the whole nine, girl, we know who the mastermind of this is, Nina.
So
Come
Thompson
on,
allegedly
girl.
used a forged driver's license that had his own photo. Right?
I love it.
And he made a fake bank account and transferred car titles, including a Range Rover.
They always want the Range Rover.
An SUV Rolls Royce Range. I don't know why I said Range Rover. I meant Rolls Royce.
A Rolls Royce.
Okay, yeah. And he was driving that the day that he drove to the bank and got arrested. He's also accused of transferring the titles of several vehicles over to himself and then selling them. They say it's unclear on how he got the cars, right? And
He knew where the keys was.
So basically, a credit union in Texas detected suspicious activity in June and notified the authorities that it was not Thompson who opened an account with the bank, right? So Thompson was arrested the second time when he attempted to get a Rolls Royce on June 16th in a different vehicle that also had been reported stolen. He's free on $730,000 bond.
Nina paid it.
I'm saying. Thomas and Nina divorced in 2020, and even after the divorce, they were involved in an incident on Christmas Eve that involved both of them brandishing weapons in a parking lot argument.
You attract who you are, and you end up marrying the same person who you are. It's you guys hold up a mirror to each other. And for that moment in time.
Listen.
Because now I got divorced and pulling guns. So y'all was the same goons the whole time.
This was a few years ago. This was a few years
ago.
Y'all
both pulling guns. Y'all both crazy.
So
they ain't got no business. Nina ain't got no business. And what's Earl? He ain't got no business either.
They
need something to do on Wednesday nights. That way
they need a hobby.
Or something. That way their time will be occupied. Because if you're busy, then that means that it's less time for you to sit up and start stuff and pull guns on people.
I mean, it's the wild, wild west out there, right?
It's crazy. The 80s outside.
1.9 million.
See, I watch my bank accounts too close for that to ever happen.
Here's the part 2 to
Every
that.
10 minutes.
There's a part 2 to that. Earl is reportedly not doing well. He, since he didn't technically retire from the league, but you know, the league sometimes moves on from athletes. So supposedly he is dealing with some issues, some of them financial, and so he probably was in a vulnerable space where maybe paying attention to what was happening with his finances and so forth wasn't a priority. As I said, neither one of them were exactly innocent in their relationship and the things that were happening, but Nina, girl, she hasn't been arrested. She hasn't been charged with anything.
Of course she hasn't.
But do you think the dude, he's only 38,
it's gonna fold on her?
Is he gonna hold her down if she's involved? This is just me kind of looking at the tea leaves. I cannot say for certain. Again, she was not charged with anything.
If y'all in it together, then y'all might as well just stick it out. And cause
you think he would do the time and just
I mean, y'all plotting crimes together and pulling guns and being big and bad enough, y'all whatever y'all y'all can have it.
Well, he was not around when she was pulling the guns and all of that.
He got some guns too.
He might, but he was not there. She's had other boyfriends. Like again.
So it's a ring of boyfriends.
Well, not a ring.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, they've been divorced for almost 4 years now.
Yeah.
So, and he's been out of the league for almost as much time, almost the same amount of time.
That's horrible.
So, we'll see what happens, hopefully. So listen, in some other interesting little news, speaking of, there's a baseball player. His name is Tim Anderson. He was recently caught up in some cheating drama, and his side chick had a baby, and he went back to his wife, and they were battling each other on social media, and now the wife is pregnant, and the side chick is out there complaining. They recently celebrated their 7th anniversary, so she put that she is building this legacy with him, and congratulations. See, ups and downs, for better or for worse. It's gonna happen.
Did the baby get conceived? I was gonna say no, because he's not a doctor. I was gonna say, did all this go down on the United plane or what?
No, he was with the Chicago White Sox, but they are not renewing his contract, so he's a free agent. We'll see where he lands. He needs to, he got a lot of kids. His wife has, I don't know if it's because it got big. His wife has quite a few children, and then he has his side baby, so he has some things he needs to handle, take care of. When we come forward, we're gonna get into Omarion's comments about an ex of Chris Brown's and Chris Brown's response. We're going to get into Miss Pat's comments about what the young girls of today are missing, what they're doing wrong, and Whoopi Goldberg's comments that the youth, y'all just lazy. So we're going to get into all of those trending topics and headlines. On the other side, you are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. News and sports on the other side.
She said, sugar free, you got some money? I said, yeah, and since with it. She said, what that mean? I looked at her dead between her eyes and said, you ain't gonna get it. Wait, now be still for me. Why not just make you independent and you wear them Converse down to and get my skrilla for me? The life and times in the city of G. They live the all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese. 5'8", 36, 24, 36, aka Yum Yum, full-time hustler, a player's trick. But I brainwashed my mother self to believing that the nana was mine. And now she tripping, cause all you wanna do is hit. She locking up on the nana, because she know that's all